Combi Hotfill, so I hope you're enjoying it.
Today, mate.
Having what? Well, yeah, traditionally that's what we dealt with, didn't we? If somebody did your work while you're on strike, you called them a scab, you went back in and said, we're going to black that machine and we're not going to touch it. They're trying, you know, whether this is designed to try and upset you, whether it's what businesses now call protecting their business, because like, before we had protected industrial action, if you went on strike, you went to the commission said, go back to work and I'll get involved in the dispute. And the commission said, I'm not going to get involved while you're in breach of your contract of employment. So that's how it used to work. It doesn't work that way anymore because it's legal to take protected industrial action. So they can't say that we're not going to talk to you because you're on strike. Legally they're required to. And that's the discussion that we had in Fair Work Australia. Anshu's position was that between him, Tony Owen and Arthur Murphy, they had determined that in the absence of a complete agreement, that in the absence of knowing what the package was going to be, that they couldn't put a further wage increase on the table. Now, to some extent that's very bloody annoying, because we have now said to them, we're tired of all this chatter and we want to know where you stand on the fact that you've delayed our wage increases from 08 and 09, and we've said very clearly to them, the next increase is due in March next year. It's not, but we're not going to accept November or December next year. The next one is due in March and they've got to deal with the last two. But they're saying, well, and finally, you'll see there's some recognition in the letter that's come back from Anshu. Finally, there's some recognition of that. That's a legitimate claim for people here to have. And we have said to them that you have budgeted for these wage increases. You have budgeted, and most companies budget about 4% per year. You've budgeted for it, you've got the money, but you're actually withholding it because you didn't get what you wanted. And we've said to them, if you get a compromise, then that money's got to be put on the table. That we're never going to accept a wage increase starting from when we get an agreement. We made it clear to them that they took the 6-day week off the table in South Australia, and they took it off the table at Leeton, and the same manager, Tony Owen, who's saying that he won't back pay you, is the one that approved the back pay at Leeton and in South Australia. He's the one that did it. I've got Bronwyn complaining about the difficulty of doing the sums and the difficulty that the tax system has gone up, or the tax rates have changed as in that period of time, so it would be a difficulty for them to calculate it. Well, who cares?
Send her back to school, not our problem, mate. Send her back to school.
Who cares?
How much they're going to pay us. Not our problem.
No doubt. Sorry,
They do nothing all day anyway. They walk around with bloody pens and papers.
well, I think you're right, and one of the other critical matters with this dispute, and I don't know if you realise, but the document that is the EBA agreement at Leeton, Bronwyn didn't do the document, Jennifer Dow did. So when they got in principle agreement at Leeton, Jenny finalised the document and sent it back to them.
They would fix all this.
And we got the wording sorted out, and then they went and voted on it. So the expectation here was, once again, that you'd get the dot points sorted out, and then we would go away and do the document. One of the things that's occurring here is there's quite a few things that need to change in the document, and if you can't get agreement on them, there's no point having an agreement on part of it and then falling over on the rest of it. And one of the key issues has been the new flexibility provisions that have to go into EBAs. So you don't have one in the current agreement, but the new laws say every agreement must have a provision in there to provide individual flexibility on at least two parts of the agreement. We had said to the company, that all they've got to do is find the two most easy parts of the agreement, like your RDOs or use of single annual leave days, and that would satisfy Fair Work Australia. They've said no, that they wanted the full clause from Fair Work Australia. That's been put into the new modern awards that'll apply from the 1st of January. That clause, and if people have seen the survey, and a lot of people filled them out, the level of understanding I suppose we've got to improve on, but that flexibility clause that would default into your agreement, and by default I mean if we can't negotiate, or if we don't negotiate a flexibility clause to go in your agreement, and we rock down to Fair Work Australia to have it approved, to make it a legal document, then Fair Work Australia will give you that one. And that one says that any individual worker with agreement with the employer, so our concern is that the individual worker could be a new seasonal employee. So you come from labour hire, you get a job as a seasonal, then you get a job as a permanent, that they could use that provision to get a new worker to work Saturdays for time and a half.
They're doing that, that's what Snowden put on the table, exactly that. The current employees fine, the new employees that come in, Saturday, time and a half, exactly that.
Well, they're all doing it. It's happening right across Australia.
Yep.
The companies are using this default. Yep. Question? Question? Companies right across Australia are using this clause to try and get flexibilities that they haven't been able to get in the past. For us, if it's a non-union workplace working under the award, where they don't have an agreement, somebody might want to use it. We're saying we're not copping it in a unionised workplace where everybody knows what the conditions are, everybody knows what the hours of work are, everybody knows what the pay is, that we should have, and I know we've got to do some work on how you get paid for the work that you do, but you should have the principle of equal pay for equal work of equal value, and it all falls apart with these clauses. So I've been saying to the company, unless we fix that, then we're nowhere. Because there's no point sorting out the Saturday, sorting out your wage increase, to go down to the Commission and they've got the back door to introduce Saturdays for new employees. And that's why it was so important to us to get rid of that proposal that was on the table for cap redundancies for new employees. Because that was the door. That was the door for this management to be able to fit new employees up with lesser conditions than you. And how do you think, how would we go in the future getting new workers to join the union and to participate in action when we'd agreed for them to have lesser conditions than what we've got? So we've fought that off and that's now gone. And we've got to deal with this individual flexibility clause.
But they're already playing with their RDOs. So that's one for them.
May well be, Julie, they may well be. And that's why we've got to be vigilant about everything that goes on and make sure our agreements cover everything. Now this is really, as you've said, this is a once in 25 years dispute. It happens in workplaces. You get some reasonable conditions, as you did here. The bosses take advantage of the workforce, they take advantage of your goodwill. Eventually they take a step too far, and here we are. We've gone from a site that had no action for 25 years to an indefinite ban on overtime, to 5 or 6 24-hour stoppages, to 3 hearings in Fair Work Australia, to a lockout, all because these people don't know their arse from their elbow, and they don't know what they're doing. But I think, as I've said to you, they now know what you do, because they've been in there trying to do it, and they've made a bloody mess of it. We've seen Woolworths turn trucks away because they weren't fully loaded. We've seen trucks turn up with raw material and turn around and drive back out because the person they had on the forklift didn't know how to unload a truck. We've had casuals that they've had in there working and they probably put pressure on them to do it, otherwise they won't get called back, get injured. You know, it's a debacle. So they finally got their heads around.
Someone got injured?
Yeah. As I understand it, yeah. And the suggestion was made to me that we should go and do an OH&S inspection to see what they're doing.
There goes our barbecue now.